Chapter 17. Then Jared kept his father's commandment, and arose like a lion over his people. He fed them in righteousness and innocence, and commanded them to do nothing without his consent. This was because he was afraid for them, that they should go to the children of Cain. He gave them orders repeatedly, and continued to do so until the end of the 485th year of his life. At the end of these years, there came to him a sign. As Jared was standing like a lion before the bodies of his fathers, praying and warning his people, Satan envied him and produced a beautiful specter because Jared would not let his children do anything without his counsel. Satan appeared to him with 30 men of his hosts in the form of handsome men. Satan himself was the oldest and tallest among them, with a fine beard. They stood at the mouth of the cave and called out Jared, who was in the cave. He came out to them and found them looking like handsome men, full of light and very beautiful. He was in awe of their beauty and their looks, and wondered to himself whether they might not be of the children of Cain. He said also in his heart, "The children of Cain cannot come up to the height of this mountain, and none of them are this handsome as these appear to be. And among these men there is not one of my kindred, so they must be strangers." Then Jared exchanged a greeting with them, and he said to the oldest among them, "My father, tell me how you are so wonderful, and tell me who these are with you. They look to me like strange men." Then the oldest began to weep, and the rest wept with him. And he said to Jared, "I am Adam, whom God made first. And this is Abel my son, who was killed by his brother Cain, whose heart was influenced by Satan to murder. And this is my son Seth, whom I asked the Lord to give me to comfort when I no longer had Abel. Then this one is my son Enos, son of Seth. And that other one is Canaan, son of Enos. And that other one is Mahalalel, son of Canaan, your father." But Jared remained wondering at their appearance, and at the words of the elder to him. Then the oldest said to him, "Do not stand there in awe, my son. We now live in the land of the north of the garden, which God created before the world. He would not let us live there, but placed us inside the garden, below which you are now living. After I transgressed, he made me come out of it, and I was left to live in this cave. That was when great and horrible troubles came on me. And when the time of my death drew near, I commanded my son Seth to tend his people well, and my commandment is to be handed from one to another, to the end of the generations to come. But Jared, my son, we live in beautiful regions while you live here in misery. Your father Mahalalel informed me that a great flood would come and overwhelm the whole earth. Therefore, my son, fearing for your sakes, I rose and took my children with me, and came here to visit you and your children. I found you standing in this cave weeping, and your children scattered about this mountain in the heat and in misery. But my son, as we missed our way, and came as far as this, we found other men below this mountain, who inhabit a beautiful country, full of trees and of fruits, and of all manner of lush, green vegetation. It is like a garden. When we found them, we thought they were you, until your father Mahalalel told me they were no such thing. Now, my son, listen to my advice, and go down to them, you and your children. You will rest from all this suffering you are in. If you will not go down to them, then arise, take your children, and come with us to our garden. There you shall live in our beautiful land, and you shall rest from all this trouble which you and your children are now living in." But when he heard these words from the oldest, Jared was confused and went here and there, but at that moment he found none of his children. Then he answered and said to the old one, "Why have you hidden yourselves until this day?" And the oldest replied, "If your father had not told us, we would not have known it. Then Jared believed his words were true. So that oldest said to Jared, "Wherefore did you turn about so and so?" And he said, "I was seeking one of my children, to tell him about my going with you, and about their coming down to those about whom you have spoken to me." When the old one heard Jared's intention, he said to him, "Do not worry about that right now, but come with us, and you shall see our country. If the land in which we live pleases you, we shall all return here and take your family with us. But if our country does not please you, you shall come back to your own home." And the old one urged Jared to go before one of his children came to talk him out of his decision. Jared then came out of the cave and went with them and among them, and they comforted him until they came to the top of the mountain of the sons of Cain. Then the old one said to one of his companions, "We have forgotten something by the mouth of the cave, and that is the chosen garment we had brought to clothe Jared with." He then said to one of them, "One of you go back, and we will wait for you here until you come back. Then we will clothe Jared, and he shall be like us, good, handsome, and fit to come with us into our country." Then that one went back. But when he was a short distance off, the old one called to him and said to him, "You stay there until I come up and speak to you." Then he stood still, and the old one went up to him and said to him, "One thing we forgot at the cave. It is this: we forgot to put out the lamp that burns inside the cave, above the bodies that are in there. Do it and come back to us quickly." That one went, and the old one came back to his fellows and to Jared. And they came down from the mountain, and Jared was with them. And they stayed by a fountain of water, near the houses of the children of Cain, and waited for their companion until he brought the garment for Jared. Then he who went back to the cave put out the lamp, and came to them, and brought an apparition with him and showed it to them. And when Jared saw it, he wondered at the beauty and grace thereof, and rejoiced in his heart, believing it was all true. But while they were staying there, 3 of them went into houses of the sons of Cain, and said to them, "Bring us today some food by the fountain of water, for us and our companions to eat." But when the sons of Cain saw them, they were in awe at them and thought, "These men are beautiful to look at. We have never seen such before." So they rose and came with them to the fountain of water to see their companions. They thought them so very handsome that they called aloud about their places for others to gather together and come and look at these beautiful beings. Then they gathered around them both, men and women. Then the old one said to them, "We are strangers in your land. Bring us some good food and drink, and bring yourselves and your women, so we can entertain, refresh ourselves with you." When those men heard these words of the old one, every one of Cain's sons brought his wife, and another brought his daughter, and so many women came to them, every one calling out to Jared, either for himself or for his wife. But when Jared saw what they did, his very soul wrenched itself from them, and he would not taste their food or their drink. The old one saw him as he wrenched himself from them, and said to him, "Do not be sad. I am the great elder, as you shall see me do. Do yourself in like manner." Then he spread his hands and took one of the women, and 5 of his companions did the same in front of Jared, that he should do as they did. But when Jared saw them doing their wickedness, he wept, and said in his mind, "My fathers never acted like this." He then spread his hands and prayed with a fervent heart, and with much weeping, and begged God to deliver him from their hands. No sooner did Jared begin to pray than the old one fled with his companions, for they could not abide in a place of prayer. Then Jared turned round but could not see them, but found himself standing in the midst of the children of Cain. He then wept and said, O God, do not destroy me with this race, concerning which my fathers have warned me. For now, my Lord God, I was thinking that those who appeared to me were my forefathers, but I have found them out to be devils, who lured me by way of this beautiful apparition, until I believed them. But now I ask you, O God, to deliver me from this race, among whom I am now staying, as you did deliver me from those devils. Send your angel to pull me out of the middle of them. I do not have the power within myself to escape from among them. When Jared had ended his prayer, God sent his angel into the middle of them, and he took Jared and set him high up on the mountain, and showed him the way, and he gave him wise advice, and then departed from him.